This is first part of session 54. Let's talk about energy centers and densities. Let's begin. We are officially halfway through all the sessions of the raw material since we finished session 53 last time, and there's 106 sessions. So we have session 54 as the 51% almost of the raw material, which, if you have been paying attention, is 51% service to others that we should be doing. So I don't know. I just found that interesting. So session 54. Let's talk about some anomaly that I found in terms of the book distribution in the material. And you can find this if you have the books, the original books. And you will find the discrepancy actually with the law of one.info, which is the project of the re-listen version. Why? The commentary that Jim and Carla did for this session is actually plays in session 50 in the original books. Now, funny enough, I found this as I was doing the translations into Spanish, and I emailed Gary from LNL Research, and I said, where does this belong? Does it go to session 50 or session 54? And so he gave me a little bit of the history of how there was a mistake, but they couldn't obviously solve it after they published it. So in any case, you'll find that the commentary on book 5 places this on session 50 as opposed to session 54 where it belongs. And you can actually see it in the exchange between Don and Ra that this is the part where it was supposed to be. So, I mean, it's not an anomaly, but maybe a trivia rather. So, just wanted to mention that because in the law of one.info, you will find the commentary in session 54 where it belongs. And then this was a correction that was obviously made by Toby Wheelock. But in the original books, you will find it actually in session 50, or in book 5 you'll find it in session 50. So just so you know, I like to be thorough, so not that this bears any relevance, but why not mention it? So okay. With that, the commentary has to do with Jim talking about when he was living in Kentucky. He was living in trying to set up his living quarters in a sort of off the grid type of environment. So he had a mystical experience. I'm just gonna put it under the umbrella of mystical experience, where he had this sort of contact or communication with. And funny enough, we were talking about contacts in the last session, but in any case, Jim had this experience, and he wanted to ask Ra what it meant. So that's the first question that we're going to cover here. I don't think I have anything else to say, so we can go straight into Don's question. Question 2. The first question is Don asking about Carla. There's nothing new to be said. Rod just says that it's like previously stated or something like that. Yep. So question 2 is Don saying, I have a question from Jim about an experience he had when he first moved to his land, in which he was told, the key to your survival comes indirect through nervousness. The entity was Angelica. Can you give him information with respect to this? Ra says, yes. Yes, we can. Question 3, Don says, would you please do that? Ra says, as we have noted, each mind-body-spirit complex has several guides available to it. The persona of 2 of these guides is the polarity of male and female. The third is androgynous and represents a more unified conceptualization faculty. The guide speaking as sound vibration complex Angelica was the female polarized persona. The message may not be fully explicated due to the law of confusion. We may suggest that in order to progress, a state of some dissatisfaction will be present, thus giving the entity the stimulus for further seeking. This dissatisfaction, nervousness, or angst, if you will, is not of itself useful. Thus, its use is indirect. So, let me give it an introduction to what I consider something that's helpful to me. You don't have to take it or see it this way, but I just want to share it because it does take into account both perceptions of what these entities are. Because we're talking about, say, Ross mentioning a couple of entities here. So I like to simplify things always as in understanding the mind, okay? And so just as we have a supposed mind, which is not really what it is, but you see, for language consensus, we have to put names to things. That's what we do. It's a little bright here, so I don't know. Doesn't matter. I guess the light is coming in through the window. Anyhow, so this language that we use about entities is the same as if we would call our thoughts entities. In fact, we actually do in the model of Law 1, we call them thought forms. So we live with entities in our minds, okay? Why am I mentioning this? Because when we try to understand the universe, we tend to externalize the idea that there are entities around us influencing us. And now, while it may be true that we can project these entities, to me they don't exist outside, they exist inside. So when we refer to the universe as one cosmic mind, we are thoughts. Actually, Ross says this. They said, you are dancing thoughts. So we are thoughts of the cosmic mind. And so these entities are also thoughts. How can thoughts exist if not within the mind? And it's not like the cosmic mind exists out there and we exist separate from it. We are the cosmic mind in a holographic sort of step down for experience. So what I'm getting at with all of this is that when at least when I try to fit into my model, these entities that are coming through and talking to us, I try to visualize it as the tendency that we have to sort of make sense of our mind. Yes, in terms of thoughts, because that's what we're having all the time. We're having, and again, we can create a larger taxonomy here in terms of thoughts and thought forms and ideas and all of this stuff, which is unnecessary. But the point is that we will assign certain characteristics because that's what the mind does. It labels things. It's a beautiful thing that we do because thanks to the mind we can experience the universe. Without no mind, we would just be pure consciousness, which again, underlying everything, we are, but we communicate with the mind. We understand with the mind, or actually I think it's safe to say that we understand with the mind. Even though understanding is not of this density. I know, Ra, I know. But we do understand through the mind, the cosmic mind in general. Anyhow, before I keep going off track, the point is that, okay, Jim had this experience, and they were entities. And Ra is saying that they were, well, first of all, it's good to know that each mind-body-spirit complex has several guides available, which is all of us. We have guides, which to me are that inertia that we have to do certain things. And if we want to do certain things, like say, for example, an athlete has his will or her will directed towards the athletic achievements, their guides are going to be quite different than somebody who is a scholar, who has interest in learning things from a different angle. Same reality, but just different directions of the will. So our guides depend on our direction. Now, the persona of two of these guides, which means, again, those influences that we have for our direction, is the polarity of male and female. The third, I suppose that Ra was mentioning this because of the name Angelica. And they say the third is androgynous and represents a more unified conceptualization faculty, which again is a discernment of feminine and masculine, whatever those influences may be in our life. And the third one being basically no gender. So again, from my model, I'm seeing it this way. Just the mind producing these polarized influences, or an influence that has no gender, no polarized, more unified type of entity. And so they say that the guide speaking as Angelica, sound vibration complex, is just the phrase they use for word. Was the female polarized persona. That's why it was called Angelica. The message may not be fully explicated due to the law of confusion. So basically, we can't talk about the message itself because you need to figure it out, Jim. We may suggest that in order to progress, a state of some dissatisfaction will be present. That has to do with... we'll explore this a little bit more with something else that Ross says, possibly towards the end of this video. I hope to get there. This is a long session, by the way, so this is probably going to be 2 or maybe even 3 sessions. It's going to be long. We have 33 questions and answers. So, we messages, okay, the dissatisfaction part, we'll explore it a little bit more, like I said, but in essence, this has to do with the message that told Jim that his sort of anxiety or uneasy nature was of some sort of help. Yeah. So this dissatisfaction, nervousness, or angst is not of itself useful. Thus, its use, it's indirect. If we go back to the message was your survival comes indirect through nervousness. So yeah, that means you see, a lot of the things that we have are not of itself helpful, but it's indirect, the way we use it, or the way it kind of helps us. You know, like you're very skeptic. You know, skepticism in itself, obviously, it's not useful, but its use, it's indirect in the way that it helps you discern things. So, you know, when you find people who are, whatever quality they may have, you see that that is an indirect use of something to accomplish something else that they desire or they're looking for. You see, going back to the example of the skeptic is actually yearning for information, yearning for truth, because you're not taking things for granted, you know, at face value. You're very skeptic. So that means you have a huge discernment possibility or potential. And, you know, same with nervousness. It's just that you know, I would think you can plan, you can see things in advance. I mean, it has its helpfulness, you know, especially when it was set to Jim for survival. So it's got indirect uses. Anyhow, this is a question that's the one belonging to book 5, and now we can get into the real exchange. between densities and energy centers that Don's going to start here. So, Ra says, actually Don says, thank you. I would like to trace the energy that I assume comes from the logos. I'm going to make a statement and let you correct me on the statement and expand on my concept. So Don expands and says, from the logos comes all frequencies of radiation of light. These frequencies of radiation make up all of the densities of experience that are created by that logos. I am assuming that the planetary system of our sun, in all of its densities, is the total of the experience created by our sun as a logos. Is this correct? Ra says this is correct, so I won't stop here. Don continues and says, now, I am assuming that the different frequencies are separated, as we have said, into the 7 colors. That each of these colors may be the basic frequency for a sub-logos of our sun logos. And that a sub-logos, or shall we say, an individual may activate any one of these basic frequency or colors and use the body that is generated from the activation of that frequency or color. Is this correct? And Ra says, if we grasp your query correctly, this is not correct in that the sub-logos resides not in dimensionalities, but only in co-creators or mind-body-spirit complexes. So, first of all, I'm going to try to lower the intensity of the light here. I'm not ready for harvest, see? The intensity of the light is too bright for me, so I will remain here in 3rd density with you guys until I can get harvested. Alright, so Don's questions are kind of convoluted in what he was trying to say. So I'm going to try to simplify it. When Ra even says, not sure if I get your question right, but entities actually reside as co-creators, basically, a hologram of the creator. And I'll give you examples of that so it makes sense. I'll try to help you visualize it. So, Don wants to ask about the structure. Let's call it the structure of the creation at the sub-logos level. Now let's recap. There is the one logos, which is the creator. Okay, that's the grand central sun. But for our purposes, let's call galaxy or the galaxy the logos. Okay. Then we have sub-logoi, which is the suns or the stars. Our sun is one such example. That's why when Don, it's not here, but in the next one, I think, he says sub-logos or our sun logos. So, let me just get out of this. So Don is asking about the frequencies. Okay, let me get this out of the way. All frequencies of radiation of light. Okay, from the logos, basically, the prism, all 7 densities come out. That is correct. And that's why Ra says, yes, this is correct. These frequencies of radiation make up all of the densities of experience that are created by that logos. I kind of scribbled a couple of things here in the board so you can see all the densities and the energy centers. Okay, I'm assuming that the planetary system of our sun, in all of its densities, is the total of the experience created by our sun. So in essence, since the star creates the prism or the 7 densities, then obviously all experience is contained within those 7 densities. At least the experiences that we can have as co-creators here. It's almost like we created an amusement park. Just a very crude example. But all the experiences you can have in this amusement park, it's contained within the field of the constructs and everything that exists in the amusement park, which is infinite, but we don't have to go to that extent. So that's what Don is asking. Is it true that this star our sun, created all of this, and all experiences are there, archetypes, everything. It's just played and molded for a specific direction of evolution. This is why we know that the sun decided to create something sort of very negative, you know. I know it sounds, some people who are very heart open would say, oh my god, how can you say that the sun is a negative being? Nope, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the potential, the possibilities of evolution were increasing their negative side. Why? Because, hey, we know that Maldek exploded, Mars destroyed its own ecosystem, and if you need more proofs, look at our history, what we have done. I mean, we can blame it on those Maldekians and Martians, which again, if you blame them, just realize that it's you. So, hey, you are the Logos, you created this. But yeah, that's just an example of how, say, the archetypes can be played with, and the experience actually in general can be tinkered with, so we can have this bellicose sort of nature in us. And that's something that eventually, you know, gets transcended. If you feel kind of, you know, put down by this, I would invite you to think about Orion. Some of the stars there, I'm pretty sure, were very negative. The Logos decided to have very negativity, a lot of negativity there. So in any case, I digress. So, my god, time flies. So, Don says that he was assuming that the different frequencies... Let's get into the incorrect part. He was assuming that the different frequencies are separated into the 7 colors. Like we said, you know, it's the 7 densities. That each of these colors, true colors as Ra calls them, may be the basic frequency for a sub-logos of our sun logos. See, sub-logos of the sun logos would mean us. Sub-logos. And that a sub-logos, or shall we say an individual, say a mind-body-spirit complex, may activate any of these basic frequency or colors and use the body that is generated from the activation of that frequency or color. So I see Don's question. It's almost like asking, you know, I want to make sure that I understand that since we as mind-body-spirit complexes reside in 7 densities, is it true that we can activate a body in each of the 7 densities? So Ra's kind of confused, I would say, when they say, you know, if we grasp your query correctly, it's not correct that the sub-logos, or a mind-body-spirit complex, resides in dimensionalities. That's not true. We reside as co-creators. We are the entire creation. In fact, who you are is a 3rd density manifestation of the entire Logos based on a specific blueprint of what you call the individual self. Even the higher self is a sort of individualized portion of consciousness within the Logos. I hope that makes sense. Think about it as you being a portion of the prism, just one band of that, which is sort of structured. It has a blueprint. It doesn't have a structure per se. It has a blueprint for developing itself in accordance with the totality of its beingness, which is, again, the Logos. And that's why, as you say, progress in your perception and consciousness, and you kind of, you know, advance in these densities, you become more aligned with infinity, and thus you dissolve into nothingness, into no-thingness. Not nothing as absence, but no thing. That's what nothingness actually means in this case. And no thing means infinity, because it cannot be thinged. You cannot think a thing anymore. You are everything. So again, what Ra is saying is like, you don't reside in dimensionalities. You reside as a co-creator per se. So an example that I said I was going to give you, entities that do reside in dimensionalities are so-called angels, or demons. In Buddhism, we have the Wheel of Life, which it's a marvelous thing to just study and stare at. Just look at it. It's amazing. But studying it, of course. But one of the things that it has is the six what do they call it? I'm going to call them states of mind, because that's all they are. It's realms. And to not go through them, there is the Naraka and the Deva, the Devas, which are like angels or supposed gods, and then there is the demons, the lower vibration sort of entities. But this is describing basically the mind. They're not saying that angels exist or demons exist. They're describing the mind and the different states of the mind. However, in our model, we see that our mind, if we want to, like I said, just play with the idea that they are entities, our thoughts are entities. And so these thoughts, or these influence for thoughts in our cosmic mind, can be called entities that reside in dimensionalities. So demons will always reside there. Angels will always reside there, because their purpose is to influence thoughts and create thought forms that we actually create thanks to them. They are sort of like, I don't want to use the word catalyst, but influence, I would say. It's just what produces, what causes us to create. And so these entities do reside there, if you want to call them entities. I would like just to call them influence energy that exists there. So in any case, I hope this makes sense. It's making sense to me. Hope I'm not alone. Alright, Don says in question 6, what I meant was that a mind-body-spirit complex then can have a body activated that is one of these 7 rays. Is this correct? Now this makes more sense, of course. Ra says this is correct in the same sense as it is correct to state that anyone may play a complex instrument which develops an euphonious harmonic vibration complex, such as your piano, and can play this so well that it might offer concerts to the public, as you would say. In other words, although it is true that each true color vehicle is available potentially, there is skill and discipline needed in order to avail the self of the more advanced or lighter vehicles. Okay, so this puts it into a lot more context. Now, with all that abstraction that I did, but now hopefully you can have an idea of how we are and how the creation is and how our mind interacts with all these densities at all times. When we're talking about the demons, those are lower vibration entities in our subplanes, in the subplane related to third density. So yellow band density has 7 subdensities, and those densities are the influence for us. That's why we say I have my energy centers and I have blockage here because I have this and that. Anyhow, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but the point is that there's a reason why I'm talking about this, because we can reside in our vehicles. We can use these vehicles. And so at this time, we're using 3 vehicles, at least, okay? We have all other vehicles or bodies in potentiation. They're not active right now, even though we can activate them. And there's a long discussion. There's dual activated bodies, which we talked about as well. 3rd and 4th density activated bodies, which are wonders or graduates from 3rd density that are coming here, incarnating here for experience and so on. there's so much to talk about this, but I just want to keep it to the structure of what they're talking about, which is the activation of the bodies. And that's what Don is asking here. The activation of these bodies. What do they mean? Well, Ra says that it is correct that you can activate any of the bodies, but it is important to say, and that's why they use the analogy of a complex instrument which develops an euphonious harmonic vibration, which is a fancy way of saying pleasant music to the ears, such as your piano. So anybody can play the piano, but you need skill and discipline to play the pianos or the different instruments, right? What do they say? Yeah, they don't say instruments in plural, but if we extrapolate from their analogy, you can have different instruments. And now, what do they mean by discipline and skill? Okay, let's do the creation once again, and let's take random energy, which is first density, which is coalescing into matter. This matter is called by what Ra calls the upper spiraling light or energy. That is simply the calling of the creator to itself. It moves into what we call here on planet Earth molecules and organic molecules that eventually dance with life, with what we call life, movement, sentient beings that are revolving into survival and simply complexifying themselves. Eventually, this complexifies itself to the point where it becomes animals, plants, and this consciousness is now able to perceive the world. That's why we have senses. We develop these senses as animals to perceive the world a lot more, and it could see or perceive itself. And through painstakingly evolution, it sort of develops self-awareness. This self-awareness collectively makes the planet go into third density. Once it goes into third density, now it can have, and it has been obviously, nurturing whatever body it decided, whether it be reptilian, avian, could be fish, could be humanoid like us, primates, it doesn't matter. Whatever body it decided to create into self-awareness, let's call the human body now, that human body is now activated. So now a mind-body can become a mind-body-spirit complex. The word complex has to do with the veil, but let's not talk about the veil. The veil is third density. It's only in third density. Okay, let's talk about the veil. So the veil is what doesn't allow us in our self-awareness to see who we are. And so we have to puzzle this through together. And that's what we're doing. Well, that's what we were supposed to start doing 75,000 years ago, but we kind of got distracted along the way, building negative society in so many ways, pyramids and crystal weapons. Then we destroyed everything, and then Egypt came, monetary system, slavery, all that stuff. Then we have Fox News and ABC. I'm just kidding. I'm not. Okay, so as humans, we became self-aware. We have the veil. We don't know who we are, and we're supposed to figure this out. As we figure this out, and we realize, oh, I am one with everything. I, the earth and me are one. Shamanism is like the primal way of connecting with yourself, with knowing that you are the planet, and what comes out of that is love. So now you're activating your fourth body, which is love for everything, appreciation, acceptance, and so on. This activates your fourth density body. Then wisdom comes along, and that's fifth density. Sixth density is density of unity, and so on. So you can see that as we evolve, we become more skillful in the use of love and acceptance, which is what we should be doing right now, of wisdom and balancing or reorganizing the acceptance of the universe, structuring it. That's a very male-oriented, intellectual approach to the universe, which needs to be balanced, as opposed to, overabundance of intuition and love and acceptance. So we balance that. That's our vehicle. We develop that. And then sixth density is just the true balance between love and light, and all being merged into unity, so we can go into the next density in our seven density body, which is the last body to say basically, oh, I am infinite. And so you dissolve and have no more bodies. You become the octave, the complete octave, if you will. So as you can see, you need skills from the random energy that needs skill to become matter, all the way to the seventh density being who is dissolving itself. That skill is acquired through experience, because that's what the creation is for. So that's basically what Ra was saying there, that you do have all bodies, but you need skill to use them. And that's what we're doing. Even in third density, again, let me reiterate this because it's really important. In third density is where we have the most possibility to work, develop, become more skillful, more disciplined with every one of our bodies, from 1 through 7. There is no other density that allows us to do this more than the human. Why? Because of the veil. What is the veil? Don't ask me yet. Wait for another video. But I kind of alluded already what it is. And you should know by now. If not, you will soon learn more from me. Alright, so question 7. Don says, now, I have made these statements just to get to the basic question I wish to ask. It is a difficult question to ask. We have, coming from the sub-logos we call our sun, intelligent energy, which then forms, and we'll take as an example a single sub-logos, which is a mind-body-spirit complex. Okay, now Don is structuring his question a lot better here. He goes on saying, this intelligent energy is somehow modulated or distorted so that it ends up as a mind-body-spirit complex. Did I say that right? Mind-body-spirit complex. With certain distortions of personality that it is necessary for the mind-body-spirit complex or the mental portion of that complex to undistort in order to conform once more precisely with the original intelligent energy. First, I want to know if my statement on that is correct. And secondly, I want to know why this is the way that it is. If there is any answer other than the first distortion of the law of one for this. Oh my god, let me unpack this. So now that we have the kind of the grounds into densities and what the mind-body-spirit complex and the vehicles are, let's tackle this question. So Don says that the sub-logos we call the sun basically creates energy, intelligent energy, and the mind-body-spirit complex is supposed to navigate this energy. Okay, so this intelligent energy is modulated or distorted, creating the mind-body-spirit complex with certain distortions. Right? That's what he means. Of personality, that it is necessary for the mind-body-spirit complex or mental portion of that complex to undistort. Okay, so this is the way I read it is a sort of setup that the logos has for each one of us. I have mentioned this in the past, where I said that the logos, in essence, is, and I kind of alluded to the same concept with the blueprint that we are for the sun. Let's just call it the sun. The sun created a specific blueprint, which is us, and it's itself. It's not the sun is separate from us. Always think in terms of unity. So the sun is experiencing itself through this specific blueprint that we are, each one of us, collectively and individually. That's why we are mind, body, spirit complexes, co-creators, and at the same time we are one. The higher the density, the more we are together, which in essence means that Ra and you and me are one, and we're thinking in the same way. We're trying to harmonize this whole system of planets together. Venus, Earth, Maldek, Mars, and so on. So, yeah. This structure that is created by the sun is what we call us. Okay, the individual mind, body, spirit complex. It is distorted in a way that it needs to be undistorted. I wouldn't call it undistorted, but just figure out or realized. It's almost like, you see, in so many belief systems, we always say that God decided to get lost into the confusion of who he is, or she is, or it is. And so in this confusion, it just navigates itself to realize itself. And in this realization is that we call the undistortion of the intelligent energy. It's basically infinity becoming finite, so it can realize that it's infinite. That's what's happening. And there are infinite ways of doing this. You are one of those infinite ways. I am one of those infinite ways. The rock is one of those infinite ways, and so on. So Don wants to know if that statement is correct, and also why is this way. And you'll see that Ra gives a very succinct answer when they say, this statement is substantially correct. If you will penetrate the nature of the first distortion, which is free will, or the law of confusion as well, they call it interchangeably, in its application of self-knowing self, you may begin to distinguish the hallmark of an infinite creator, variety, where there are no potential for misunderstanding, and therefore understanding, there would be no experience. So, in a nutshell, that's exactly what I just said. Thank you, Ra. You see, the confusion, the veil itself, that's why the veil is so powerful. That's why the veil is so useful, because it creates further confusion. It even creates the confusion that we are separate beings completely from the universe, that, you know, we are going to end, you know, and this is the biggest thrill for the creator, to believe that it's going to end, that infinity has an end. Just think about the paradox of that. That is what the logos is. So when you find yourself worried or stressed about something, just realize that, okay, I am infinite, believing that there is a finite beingness to this, to whatever it is. That, you know, there is an abyss in which I will fall and never come back again. So the name of the game is confusion. Confusion and getting lost. Now, check many of the words that Ra is saying here. First, they're saying this statement is substantially correct in the sense that the sun creates all of this, and then there is the blueprint that I kind of alluded to for the mind-body-spirit complex to realize itself, to figure out, or like Don said, undistort, which is, once again, if infinity gets distorted, it gets undistorted again. Oh my god, I can go on analogies for this, because our mind is a distortion itself. It's a fundamental distortion. Our mind is infinite consciousness contracted into a finite being, which is the mind, which is not really a being. It's an illusion of consciousness as a separate being. Oh, this is so exciting. Anyhow, I just want to use the more exciting words from Ra when they say, if you will penetrate the nature of the first distortion in its application of self knowing self. Now remember, first distortion is free will. Free will is also equated to the law of confusion. When Ra says we don't want to abridge free will, or we don't want to, or this is within the law of confusion, they're talking about the same thing. So first distortion, free will, law of confusion, of self knowing self. So God knowing itself. You may begin to distinguish the hallmark of an infinite creator. Variety. Of course. The variety of experiences that we're having. And you are an experience, I am an experience. We're all part of the same thing. We're thoughts in the same mind. Where there are no potentials for misunderstanding or confusion, and therefore understanding, because confusion leads to clarity, there would be no experience. How can you have experience if you are not confused, if you have no misunderstanding? This also brings us to polarity. Huge point here. Whenever you see yourself worried, stressed about something, it's because you're navigating one of the poles, and you're forgetting that the other pole is necessary for you to be on that pole. So you go back to the middle. Okay, always the middle. And that's Buddhism, actually. So anyhow, this is really exciting, but we have to keep going. Let's go to question 8. Question 8, Don says, okay, once a mind-body-spirit complex becomes aware of this process, it then decides that in order to have the abilities, the full abilities of the creation and the creator, of which it is a small part, yet at the same time all of it, I would say. In order to have the abilities that go with the entire creation, it is necessary to reunite its thinking or reharmonize its thinking with the original creative thought in precise vibration or frequency of vibration, I will say. He then finishes and asks, in order to do this, it is necessary to discipline the personality so that it precisely conforms with the original thought or original vibration. And this is broken into 7 areas of discipline, each corresponding to one of the true colors of the spectrum. Is this correct? Now Ra says, this statement, though correct, bears great potential for being misunderstood. The precision, that which each energy center matches the original thought, lies not in the systematic placement of each energy nexus, but rather in the fluid and plastic placement of the balanced blending of these energy centers in such a way that intelligent energy is able to channel itself with minimal distortion. The mind-body-spirit complex is not a machine. It is rather what you might call a tone poem. And here we see Ra's artistic description of our beingness. Whenever possible, they always say this to kind of, deter us from the notion that we are machines, that we need to get things right, that we need to, conform to certain things. This is a very, this is why Ra says that left brain, so-called left lobe brain, can get into negative polarity, or negative polarization rather, because you want to get things structured. You want to create a sort of recipe into which we have to follow. And Ra throws in the truth that even though there is a structure, there is a malleable sort of approach to things. And if you read Don's question again, it's very accurate in the way that he describes that, we are created from infinity into a distorted being to find infinity. And so that's why he calls the original thought or original vibration that we need to conform with and harmonize and all of the... So, to conform with that, we have to go into each of the energy centers, and get them right and all of this. Now, again, Don's thinking is not wrong. It is correct. But, you see, Ra is just saying like, okay, yes, everything you said is true, but let's clarify it a little bit on the wavy side. Your blueprint, your structure is well constructed, but let's add some colors to it. Let's add some flexibility to it too. And that's why they say, fluid and plastic, two great words to emphasize this point. That we have energy centers that are only in need for for intelligent energy to flow through effortlessly. That's the point. No effort into intelligent energy. And this is why, say, Taoism is great for this, because it shows you the nature of reality. It shows you how we are in accordance with nature when we are fluid, when we are spontaneous. This is what Zen Buddhism also inspires in us, is that spontaneity. And so that is the approach that I would say to energy centers. It's not that, I have negative thoughts, I have a blockage in my red or orange energy center, I should do this. No, I would say just experience it, allow it to happen, in your mind. If it's not consonant with the law of one to do it externally, then don't do it. But if you need to express yourself, sexuality, survival, societal affairs, whatever it is, express yourself. Love, hey, listen, I have love for crystals, I love them, I love crystals. I have love for trees, let me express that. Not, people are gonna think I'm weird because I love plants or crystals or cars or whatever it is. Just express that. That is the fluidity that Ra is talking about here. And you may think like, well, those things are not spiritual. Cars or even guns, I would say, which a lot of us will probably frown upon. But hey, if you like guns, you love guns. You have love for guns. I'm particularly not excited about guns. But I'm not very American. I don't like sports, guns, alcohol, drugs, and all that stuff. That is, I love. George Carlin used to talk about the 5 or 6 clubs of men. Very American. I did not belong to any of those clubs. But anyhow, people love them. Just express it. Do it. Nobody's here to tell you what is not spiritual and what is. That's the person that tells you that something is not spiritual has no idea about spirituality. You may think that this has no relevance to higher densities and the logos and all this magnanimous stuff, but who are you to say so? Even you have no say in this. Enjoy your life. That's all I'm telling you. Try to convince you to enjoy your life. Is that too much to ask? Just enjoy who you are. That's it. You will learn from that. Yeah, people would tell you, well, doing these things is bad, and all that. Whatever. That's their judgment. You live with who you are. Be fluid. Be plastic. Plasticity, not plastic in the sense of being fake. Alright, question 9. Don says, do all mind, body, spirit complexes in the entire creation have the 7 energy centers once they have reached full development or development to the point where they can have 7 energy centers? This is a question All right, Ra says, these energy centers are in potential in macrocosm from the beginning of creation by the logos, coming out of timelessness. All is prepared. This is so of the infinite creation. I'm kind of confused. See, speaking of confusion. Why would Don ask this question? Okay, so yeah, I have an idea. Let me first say, Don is asking if we have all energy centers. And Ra says, yes, all energy centers are in potential. That's a key word here. In potential, in macrocosm, from the beginning of creation by the logos. So when I said that you are a blueprint, and you have the logos decided you. It said, or it decided itself as you, and said, let me experience myself in this way. It doesn't matter how you feel you are, because you are infinite already. Let me put it this way, because I know people may say like, well, how come, I feel myself so limited and so on. You're thinking as a separate self as you see yourself this way. This is why I always encourage, if you still think of yourself as something of a victim or that is suffering, you're not thinking of yourself as you truly are, infinite. You're thinking as a separate self. And that is the reason why you have the idea of a separate self, to suffer so you can realize that you are infinite, that you are all love, light, and perfect. Really, you are perfect. The imperfections are created by the separate self. So in any case, the logos decided to create this infinite being that you are to experience these things that you are experiencing. And so in its creation, you are already in potentiation on all of your 7 bodies. So they are, that's what Ra is saying. Coming out of timelessness. Again, timelessness is that random energy. Actually, it's before random energy, but let's just call it a random energy that I talked about before it materializes into first density. So that's the timelessness. All is prepared. Coming out of timelessness, all is prepared. This is so of the infinite creation. Basically, all the creation is in this essence, is 7 densities. The logos or the sub-logos create the amusement parks for their own galaxy, like Ra calls them, for their own star system. And we simply are the manifestations of that logos or sub-logos here. Now, I was confused a little bit because I think this was spoken about in the late 40 sessions, the 40s, the session 40, 47, 48, somewhere around there. Ra said already that and explained that we have all bodies in potentiation. So Don is asking this question. I'm assuming he didn't quite get it, or maybe he wanted confirmation. It's important to mention that we have been studying this for years or months, and at this point in the sessions, they were, I think this was May 29th. They weren't even into 5 months, of doing all of this, and at the same time studying it. So I understand why we're done. Ask clarification for this, or ask about this in any case. All right, I want to cover a little bit more. Let me see how far we can get, because we're closing on the hour. We are in question 10, and we're gonna get into energy centers soon. So this question, let's see how many we can get. All right, so question 10, Don says, then I will assume that the creator, in its intelligent appraisal of a way of knowing itself, created the concept of the 7 areas of knowing. Is this correct? Ra says this is partially incorrect. The logos creates light. The nature of this light thus creates the nature of the catalytic and energetic levels of experience in the creation. Thus, it is that the highest of all honor duties, that given to those of the next octave, is the supervision of light in its manifestations during the experiential times, if you will, of your cycles. So I suppose, this is just my supposition, that the incorrectness lies in that in nuance rather than Don being incorrect, because I think his statement was actually pretty accurate when he says that the creator, in its intelligent appraisal of a way of knowing itself, created the concept of the 7 areas of known, so the 7 densities. So I think it's pretty accurate. So I'm going to say that it's the nuance that in the process of knowing itself, there is catalyst. Let's just read what Ra said again. The Logos created light, or creates light. The nature of this light thus creates the nature of catalytic and energetic levels of experience in the creation. So it's almost like the Logos creates light, and the nature of this light is to create, in essence, all 7 densities plus consciousness in the way of the mind, in the way of experience for the purpose of self's knowing self. Thus, it is that the highest... okay, now they get into... I don't know why they would mention this, but it's a good addition. Remember when we talked about... There's been 2 sessions prior to this. In the first one, we talked about harvest and the guides or guardians. They talked about these guardians that are from the next octave. So go watch that. I don't remember where it was from, but I think it's labeled harvest or something. You should have watched them anyways. Otherwise, what are you doing here? I think it was session 52, 51. It was in the 50s. The prior to this one. And I don't think it was session 53. It was definitely session 51 or maybe 50. But these guardians, one of them is the ones above our octave. So they're giving us information again on these. They were mentioned again because Don asked in the following session. So if you find the session, go to the next one where Don says, can you please tell me a little bit more about these guardians? And Ra explained that. So now they're giving us a little bit more of that the highest of all honor duties is given to those entities who are in complete consonant with the whole universe, I would say, because they are in the next octave. So they are in complete consonant with the whole universe. We're talking about planets, stars, galaxies, cluster of galaxies, the whole universe. They are in consonant. They are consonant with this whole harmony, and they beam light for a more accelerated evolution. So, if I can describe this to you, imagine there is a new octave of creation which doesn't know anything about itself yet because it's new. Okay, about its I mean, infinity knows itself, but within the octave of creation where it's the game we play to get confused, there's a new confusion, and we're trying to figure out this confusion through this octave of creation. Well, as we evolve completely as an octave, we get more and more information about ourselves within this new game rules. And this is why we can have infinite octaves, because we can have infinite game rules. But in this octave, we have kind of figured out a lot of these game rules. These entities who are in the next octave can sense or perceive or know all of the evolution through these game rules. And as they know, they can beam this light of knowledge, or distortions, or love light, whatever you want to call it, to us to further evolve faster and better. And that's why they're so crucial in Harvest as it is now, because they're beaming this, call them love wisdom, to us to accelerate the process. So that's why the highest of all honor duties within the octave is those given to the next octave. Because those of the next octave are already gathering everything from this one and figuring out the game rules for the next one. So you see, and again, don't look at them as separate entities. It is a part of yourself that already knows everything, and you can certainly channel that as an adept, as somebody who is into this. So Let's cover one more question. It's question 11. And I think that'll nicely put us on energy centers for the next time. Yes, why not? All right. So, question 11. Don says, I will make another statement. The mind-body-spirit complex may choose, because of the first distortion, a mental configuration that is sufficiently displaced from the configuration of the intelligent energy in a particular frequency or color of in-streaming energy so as to block a portion of in-streaming energy in that particular frequency or color. Is that statement correct? Ra says, yes, that is correct, basically. And let's cover another one, because this goes with this one. Don says, this question may be no good, but I'll ask it. Can you give me an idea of the maximum percentage of this energy it's possible to block in any one color? Or does that make any sense? Ra says, there may be, in an entity's pattern of in-streaming energy, a complete blockage in any energy or color or combination of energies or colors. So, let's finish it here. And let me go back to Don's question in question 11. Don is only talking about here. First of all, Ra says that this is correct. So we're just going to read it. Or interpret it, rather. The mind-body-spirit complex may choose, because of the first distortion, free will, a mental configuration that is sufficiently displaced from the configuration of the intelligent energy. So, of the blueprint that it is to be, it's almost like the higher self decides to put you into those things that will challenge you to know yourself more. I mean, if the higher self puts you in, and this goes with a lot of people that say, oh, why, did I choose to live in this place? Why did I... That's catalyst that's going awry. It's going incorrect use. Because the catalyst that you're feeling right now, it's not you. It's you're presented with what you are not, so you can see yourself for who you are. So, you know what? Let's make this the official conclusion. Because we are going to make a bridge from this question into the next video, part 2. Because, oh my god, beautiful. I have 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds since I started my slideshow. Perfect. So, so many ones. So many oneness. So much oneness. And that's the point of this. That's the point of this conclusion. That, the incarnation is supposed to show you what you are not, so you can see yourself at what you are. The illusion makes your reality more real. Shall I put it like that? You see, there is the cosmic plan, which is, the logos, the blueprint of reality and all of this. Then there is the individual plan programming of the mind-body-spirit complex, which, like Don said here beautifully, because the first distortion, or free will, a mental configuration that is sufficiently displaced from the configuration of the intelligent energy in a particular frequency or color in-streaming energy so as to block a portion of in-streaming energy in that particular frequency or color. I know it's very, fancy worded here, but all that Don is saying is that you program yourself with certain displacements of your energy centers so as to create a sort of persona, a persona that needs to be unmasked. And that's what you're doing here. You're unmasking yourself from whatever personality you thought you had of the separate self. Okay, this is not to do with the disciplines of personality. That's the Atman personality, the higher self personality, the logos blueprint for yourself, for the individualized portion of consciousness that you are. So, with this in mind, these displacements are placed so you can harmonize them. And by harmonizing them, you are becoming, again, more you. Okay? So, then Don says that, okay, he asks if there is a way to block fully. This is possible. Like Ross said, that it is possible to block fully an energy center. I can't really think of many examples, but the one of the negative entity that blocks the heart, that is a complete blockage, the heart center, because you need it to progress as a separate individual, as a separate self. You need to not pay attention to the heart that tells you love everything. It's like when your mom told you to do things and you didn't do them. Well, you ignored, that. I don't know if it was loving or not what she told you, but in any case, that's the same idea. You want to become something else, and you go and don't pay attention. So, with that in mind, and it's part of this wrapping up for the message, I would say, the morale of this story that we taught today is that you exist. If you're studying this, if you're reading this, you should always keep in mind unity. Like, that should be, your operating system. Your operating system should be already in unity. Okay? You should be processing everything from that point of view. It's okay, you have emotions, you have everything, but know that all of that is only, like Don beautifully put here, are distortions that are placed there for us to harmonize. And we harmonize it with the tools that we already have. Acceptance of everything. That's the only key here. Love is the answer to everything. And love is just unconditional acceptance of yourself and other selves. So I don't think I can, and I don't want to complicate this more or complexify it more than it is. This is just another reminder of our infinite beingness, the beauty of limitation, of infinite possibilities, and how we can enjoy this reality by being a finite being. And at the same time, know that everything that's happening is just happening. I don't want to say you planned this, because this gives the idea of, you have a plan, you're going to follow that. But, this is all already in congruency with your own beingness, with who you are. So why worry? And like I mentioned before, when Ross said, we're not machines, we're a tone poem. And music is the best when it's played naturally, not structured. The most structured music? Military bands. Those military bands are very structured. That's not music to me, And okay, I'm not putting in the military bands that play for fun music. I'm talking about, marching drums and so on. Like, that's just grim. So give a little plasticity to your life, fluidity, be like water. Just fluid. Takes the path of least resistance. It nourishes everything in its path, whether under the shadow or under the light. Be like water. And with that, I come to the end of this first part. I foresee this being 3 parts, actually, because we still have, I got to not even a third of my slideshow. So that means 3 parts, most likely. In any case, thank you for watching this far. I appreciate you and all your comments. Very thoughtful, very inspiring. Even there's an outlier sometimes that throws in a little negativity. I love that. Please keep doing it. That's your expression, and it's a gift to all of us. Seriously, I always say this. In fact, I'll leave you with a little anecdote. In the community that I have in Facebook, well, I don't have it. It's just a community that started forming there. Now and then, there's a negative comment, somebody attacking someone else, and I always use it as a beautiful example of, somebody who needs to express their emotions. Because there is no act that doesn't come from love. We're all acting from love. We don't know this because we kind of have a label for it. Hate, frustration, and so on. But hate is coming from a place of love. If you really analyze the emotion, it's coming from a place of love. It's frustration that you can't express your love one way, so you express it in a very, aggressive way. It's coming from love anyways. So, for one that can discern the root of all actions, you can see love everywhere. And with that, I finally say goodbye. Thank you for watching. I love you, my other self. And I'll see you in the next part of session 54.